Okay, that was, geez, Tape, that was a lot. White Fox and Tape just out to destroy hearts. But hello, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one of our weekly ReZero Season 2 discussion videos. Today we're here to talk all about episode 23, Love Me Down to My Blood and Guts. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here, and without further ado, we are gonna go ahead and get right into this thing. Now, there is like 3 big things that happened this week, okay? So it's gonna be very much, as usual, a sort of scattershot video. There's a lot going on. I'm going to start by talking about Garfiel and Elsa, but some other stuff that I'm gonna hit along the way is some of Emilia passing her trials, which is great, and Ram and Puck versus Roswaal, which is also great, but ends just in such a way that I have to scream, but I'm not going to do that. Because again, the last few episodes, this season, not just ReZero, but like most shows this season have been really killing the vibe. And by killing the vibe, I mean this is supposed to be a channel that is sort of like the lo-fi hip-hop of AniTube. That's how I like to think of this channel, that we just sort of get together, we kick back, and we talk about seasonal anime, and we usually do it in a pretty chill way. Not the last few weeks. The last few weeks have had me sort of ramping up, and I'm very much like feeling my feels. And I feel like that's pretty much justified. The last few weeks of ReZero have been absolutely intense, and the last few weeks of basically every show have been pretty intense. So that whole chilled, laid-back vibe, the lo-fi hip-hop channel of AniTube has suddenly become just like a lot of screaming. But I do feel like that screaming is justified in just how insane this episode is, but also what an absolute 10 out of 10 this episode is. And I probably made the thumbnail. This episode and this season, this episode cemented it. I usually wait until I give things a 10 out of 10. I usually wait until the whole season is done before I judge it like that. But no, this season's just a 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is just a perfect season. This is so good. This is up there with some of my favorite seasons of any show. Like some of my favorite seasons of all time. Like this is like really top tier. Like top 10 anime of all time right now. ReZero is just surpassing. ReZero is touching the heavens, right? It's like at that point where I'm like, I could consider this one of my favorite seasons of anything ever. It's legitimately been that good. And this episode just felt like the culmination of 3 separate storylines that this show has been juggling this whole season. And it all culminated in such a way that it never really clicked. That I'm like, oh, there really has been like 3 central stories, right? Not 4 technically, including Subaru, right? Because Subaru is here, but it's mostly the culmination of 3 separate stories. One for Garfiel and him overcoming his own self-doubt and actually being a member of the team in such a way that he can truly help. You get everything going on with Ram and Emilia. And we will get to them soon, but it's such a solid culmination. And again, I want to start by talking about Garf versus Elsa, because oh my god, this was so sick. I don't want to see any complaints anymore about like, man, the fights this season just aren't as good as they were before. Nonsense. Like Garf versus Elsa was so sick. That had my shonen love and heart going crazy. You guys know when it comes to anime, I want 2 things. I want hype, and I want dope characters, dope shippable characters, I should stress. And ReZero does that like in multiple ways. ReZero has a ton of dope characters who are very shippable, but it also has a ton of hype moments. Now the thing with ReZero is a lot of those hype moments tend to be dialogue, right? ReZero's big strength is its dialogue. However, ReZero is not to shy away from some dope action. We've seen it a ton with Season 1. We've seen it a good number of times in Season 2. But this episode, this was dope. And Garf versus Elsa, perfection. Easily one of my favorite fights in the whole series now. And it's just gorgeous. Like the way it starts in this sort of gloomy like blue hues, right? Like the blue light from the moon shining into the mansion, and you see it sort of like illuminating both Elsa and Garf until the fire starts because friggin' Otto sets everything ablaze. Best boy Otto, by the way. But yeah, Otto and Petra killing the big mobbies there. That was dope, but unfortunately starts to set the mansion on fire, which admittedly, like I said this in the reaction that I posted to the second channel, and I kind of stand by this. At this point, you may as well burn the whole thing down to the ground. Just make sure you get Biko out of there first. I don't want to see anything bad happen to Beatrice. So the gang, starts to set the mansion on fire, and suddenly those blue hues transform into a heated red. And to me, that's such a good... You guys know me. I love proper use of color. So I have to give my kudos to the color design team on this particular episode, because like the blue hues starting, right? Like we start very cold, right? The fight between Elsa and Garf is intense, but it doesn't get super intense until after the flames hit. And once the flames hit, the whole fight fires up. Like the fight gets more heated, hence the warmer palette, right? We start cold, we get hot. And that's super sick. And I loved not only the animation, but just the dynamic at play, right? Garf is a king. Garf is such a friggin' dope character, and I'm so happy that this dude is like going toe-to-toe with Elsa, because I've always wanted to see Elsa actually have somebody she can go toe-to-toe with outside of Reinhardt, because Reinhardt's like in a league of his own, right? I wanted to see somebody go toe-to-toe with Elsa, not just be super OP against Elsa, you know what I mean? Although I do love you, Reinhardt, don't get it twisted. But seeing somebody actually like on par with Elsa, really giving her a run for her money, and like her being like absolutely just infatuated with this, right? And even my chat being like, Elsa chill, he's like 14, right? But like just seeing her just like loving this fight and like really digging into this. And the fact that they both say each other's name, right? It's so sick. And I actually really appreciated the dynamic with Melee, because it actually mirrors the dynamic with Freddy. Freddy jumps in and like is ready to assist Garf, right? But then Garf is just like, no, back off. I told you that I can handle this on my own. It's better if I fight by myself, because otherwise I'll just have to worry about you. And Melee shows up, and she's like, Elsa, what are we gonna do? And Elsa's like, Melee, jeez. Like, and so Garf says, like, you sisters are really getting in the way right now. And Elsa sort of looks at Melee, and she says, like, sisters, huh? Right? And even catches Melee when Melee gets knocked off the hippo, right? Like, she catches Melee, and when Melee gets taken away by Freddy towards the end, she like reaches out and cries like, Elsa! Like as she gets taken away. And so I was like, wait, are we actually giving Elsa someone to care about right now? And then we get the Elsa backstory, and I'm like, damn. I mean, Elsa's still crazy. But we find out A, Elsa's a vampire. B, Elsa was abandoned as a kid in a very, very cold city. But, explains her coldness. But not only was she abandoned in the super cold city, she was in a horrible situation with the shopkeep owner, where he was pretty much forcing himself on a young Elsa, which is like really messed up. And so Elsa just finds a spare piece of glass and just cuts the dude open. And that's when she realizes that, you know what, it might be cold outside, but blood and guts are so warm. And I was like, yikes. Listen, I'm all here for killing the dude who was going to do some horrible shit. I'm all here for that, but that was maybe not the lesson to learn from that. Like, Elsa just snapping. But she even says, like, even then she was still thieving and, like, attacking. And, like, she was never really good. Like she was never inherently a good person. It's not like she had a fall, but you do get how she became this way. Like you understand, right? Again, you follow the tracks make sense. Like I understand how Elsa ended up the way she is. She's never truly redeemable. Like even her connection to Melee doesn't really make her a good person. And it's not like Melee, because it's not like Melee's a good person either. Melee's bad too. But it's just, it's a really good moment to sort of humanize Elsa. Just as Garf throws a hippo at her because he knows he can't kill her, so he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna just dunk this hippo on top of you. Boom! And my God, credit to ReZero for showing this stuff. So many other shows would have like cut away or had like a big beam of light block certain scenes, but no, like we see it. Like we see Elsa like crumple under the weight of that hippo, that dead hippo, might I add. And yeah, Garf is just an absolute king, and I had to gush about that fight for a little bit before I, shift gears. But before we shift gears, by the way, did you guys know that the like button is free? You could just go ahead and hit that button. It's free. Garf would have hit that like button. I don't know if you guys have hit that like button, but Garf would. Do you want to upset Garf? Garfiel? Do you want to upset Lasagna Boy? You better hit that like button. If you haven't hit that sub button yet either, my God, I only tell you to hit that sub button every video. Anyway, let's talk about Emilia. Emilia passes her trials this week. Oh my God. Emilia passing the trials was interesting, right? Because this whole like an unthinkable, what was it? Not an unthinkable future. It was something like she sees the future. She sees the future. And she sees multiple futures actually, which is kind of interesting. And what I find the most interesting is that she sees basically all the darkest possible timelines. So she sees, the timeline where everybody has goatees. Wow, I can't believe I referenced Community in a ReZero video. But she sees all the darkest timelines. She sees evil, evil Troy and evil Abed. And this doesn't really faze her. She's affected by it. It does hurt her. She then sees Rem, and I freaked out because I was like, oh my God! And then she sees Rem and Subaru, and then she's suddenly at the tea party. And I'm like, oh shit. But no Echidna. Very key. Echidna doesn't show up, and I'm not super certain why. Outside of the fact that we know that Echidna, her feelings were really hurt during the trial. Ironically enough, she's trying to hurt Emilia's feelings, and then Emilia ends up being the one whose feelings are like A-okay, and Echidna is the one who gets her feelings hurt. I don't super know why, but I assume it has something to do with Emilia's mom somehow. Why do I say that? Because my favorite witch, I don't know if I made this clear enough, but when I analyzed Minerva's character design was so good. It's only grown on me with time. And I love her design. You guys know me, I love talking about character designs, I love talking about colors, but Minerva, just even outside of the design, her personality is so fun. And when I saw Minerva, I got hella hype, because I was like, Minerva's my favorite witch. Of all the witches, and listen, I love Echidna, you guys know I do, but Minerva's my fave, right? And so I was like, hell yeah, I was so happy to see Minerva. And it's, how do I explain this? So, Minerva seems to know Emilia's mom and says that she made a promise she wouldn't tell Emilia or talk about it. And so Emilia says, that's fine. Doesn't try to argue, doesn't do nothing because Emilia's grown a hell of a lot and isn't that kind of girl anymore. So she doesn't pressure Minerva for information about her mom. And she's like, that's fine because my mom was Mother Fortuna. All right? And I'm like, hell yes it was. You've always known your mother, Emilia. You know what I mean? You don't know your birth mom, but who cares? Because your mom was Fortuna, 100%. That is never in question. And it warmed my heart. And her confidence shakes Minerva. And she kind of gets emotional. I get emotional during this scene as well, right? Me and Minerva, we're on the same wavelength. I got emotional here, and I get emotional later. But Minerva kind of gets, emotional and says, I'm not crying. I don't have the right to cry. And Emilia's like nobody needs the right to cry. And then Minerva just kind of grabs her and hugs her. And this moment was shocking because because to me it's I didn't even know there was a connection between these two. And theory time, do I think that Minerva is somehow Emilia's mom? Not quite. I saw my boy Memory NK bring this up. And I thought the same thing for a second. I'm like, maybe, but even Memory points out that there's flaws in that logic, right? Because Minerva died hundreds of years ago, so the timeline doesn't match up. But maybe there's some wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff going on, so maybe. But even then, it's sort of difficult to discern. But then, like, who is her mom? You know, like, it's difficult to say. A part of me almost wonders if maybe, like, Echidna's her mom somehow. Again, I also doubt that, but, like, I don't know who Emilia's birth mom is, but she has something to do with the witches, and I imagine this is something that we'll likely get into in a future season. Probably not season 3. I have a feeling like we won't really dive into who Emilia's true parentage is, but it's definitely something to just sort of ponder on for a bit. And I gotta say, that hug was super sweet. I would have loved to have gotten a hug from Minerva. I'm just saying, if somebody could maybe draw me some fan art of Minerva giving me a hug like that, I'd be quite appreciative. I don't know if Minerva really be handing out hugs to undead zombie boys, but, like, I'd appreciate it. And everything in the Emilia thing is great, right? I'm like, Emilia, she passes the trial, breaks the barrier, and you're thinking, like, hooray, everything's wonderful. Gets outside. Freak, there's snow. Snow everywhere. And I'm like, no, not the bunnies. Not the bunnies. So that's where Emilia's story ends. So it's like, great, thanks, Tape. Thanks, White Fox. Now I gotta wait a whole ass week to find out what the hell happens. But I want to talk about the big thing that made me cry this week. That is Ram and Puck versus Roswaal. Puck, first of all, Puck antagonizing Roswaal the entire time was hilarious. I really appreciate Puck's involvement in this fight, because it sort of is this nice little, like, it's a chance to breathe during this whole thing, because for the most part this fight is like, it's very emotional, because the fight is mostly Ram and her love for Roswaal attempting to break through Echidna's brainwashing, and Roswaal just not having any of it. Like, Roswaal just refuses. And there's this brilliant scene where Ram finally admits her feelings and says, like, that she loves him. And Roswaal's like, that's not true. That's impossible. No, but Roswaal says, like, that's not true. Like, you hate me. I know you do. Like, you hated me when we first met. And, like, after everything I've done, how could you possibly love me? You're lying. Like, that's not true. And it shakes him. Like, you could see it shakes him. And I said this in my reaction, I'm like, you don't deserve her love, right? But at the same time, I'm like, but I love Roswaal. Like, I love Roswaal and I love Ram. Do I want to see them together? Not really. Because, like, Roswaal hasn't earned Ram's love to me yet. You know, like, Roswaal is undeserving. I can love him, but he's undeserving of Ram's love right now. And it's just, like, seeing the way that she is like, it doesn't matter. I'm aware that what you've done is horrible, and I am upset. And yeah, some people might call me a traitor, but I can't help the way I feel. It's how I feel, and I'm going to save you whether you like it or not, right? And Roswaal's like, oh yeah, well, bring it on, right? And of course, Puck's just like, Puck has the best line of the whole episode when he goes like, outside of me defending my daughter, I'm always on the side of a girl in love. And I'm like, hell yeah, Puck. Puck is just the man. And he, for a second, I thought he turned into that big badass form, but it turns out he's like, nah, I just grew to my normal, I just grew really big. I just scared you though, didn't I? And Roswell's like, Kamehameha! I just like blasts him away. And then Roswaal is attacked by Ram, but he doesn't get, like, physically hurt. And he's like, what? And then Ram coughs up blood, and I'm like, not my girl! And she gets the book, and Roswaal freaks out because they're surrounded by fire, and Ram destroys the book. And just saying that gave me shivers, because, like, you see Roswaal, like, the look on his face is pure horror. Like, he's scared, he's sad. It's like absolute agony, right? Watching him be separated from the book. Like the look on his face, knowing that this thing that he's been, like, connected to, this thing that still ties him to Echidna, the fact that it gets burned, it means, like, everything he's sought, everything he's done is just over. And there's this beautiful moment where like Ram has this song that's playing the entire time behind her. And it's so emotional. And she has this moment where she's like, okay, I did it. It's over. And then this fucking fireball. Like, Roswaal sends a fireball Ram's way. We see her get hit. And I'm like, please, no. Because I've been terrified of this for a long time. I've been so scared that somebody's gonna die. And Subaru isn't gonna be able to go back and stop it. Like, there's gonna be something that happens where, like, his return by death doesn't go back far enough. And that's my big concern, is that what if Ram dies here, but they get everybody out of Sanctuary and he can't go back? And like, that's my big concern, is I don't want Ram to die, because Ram's like one of my favorite girls in the whole show, right? So it's like, I don't want anything to happen to Ram. And I don't know what's gonna happen from here. And I'm scared. I'm sad. I was really scared and sad. But again, if this is the end, I said this in the reaction, and I think it's worth repeating in the discussion video. If this was the end, if Ram's character, if this is the end of her journey, this is a holy shit amazing ending. This is like a 10 out of 10 ending for Ram's character if it ends here. I don't want it to. My ideal ending would be that Roswaal learns the error of his ways, earns Ram's love, and they live happily ever after, right? Like, I don't want this to be the end for Ram, because, I don't know what I want for Ram, outside of just, I want somebody. I prefer Otto, if I'm honest. But, by the way, before I forget, Natalie has a great video on, like, the possible ships for Ram, and you guys should go check that out. I'll try to leave it in the pinned comment. If it's not there, remind me, I'll link it. But there's a great video on ships for Ram, and there's so many people who Ram could end up with. And I want Ram to be able to end up with someone so she is not allowed to be dead. Okay? Are you listening, Tape? Like, no, I refuse. I refuse. But also, what does this mean for Roswaal? What does this mean? Like, is this the start of the Roswaal redemption arc? I feel like he's already been on the path of a possible redemption arc. So maybe. I don't know. But again, I want my clown husbando redeemed. I want him to not have killed my girl. And I just want everyone to make it out of this arc okay, because I'm freaking out. And yeah, this episode was a straight up 10. This was just, the whole thing was just a 10 out of 10. So with that said, everybody, that is gonna wrap up today's video here. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here. And before we go, as always, I wanna give a big, big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button. That gets you a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and of course your name scrolling past the screen here. Or you could check out that Patreon link in the description. Either way, it is super, super appreciated and keeps the lights on around here. So if you want to help us out, Patreon link or the join button, either way, big help. So once again, a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Ram better be okay. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. I gotta go. I'm still freaking out. It's been like a full hour after watching it by the time I recorded this, and I'm still freaking out. I need to drink some water and calm the hell down. So anyway, bye!